Hi everyone, my name is Tyra and my news report is about environment and it's about something that is happening in Japan and that involves many countries. I took the news from BBC the 13th of April and it's called Fukushima. Japan's approves controversial plan to release sewage into the ocean. This problem has a big impact on international relations between neighboring countries of Japan and its own population, since it's something that directly affects the environment, but it's a very controversial issue with many positions. Well, now what's happening? The first thing that you have to know is that on March 11 of 2011, a violent tsunami hit the east coast of Japan and caused damage to the Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power station, from which radioactive material was released into the environment. Since then, about 200 tons of radioactive water has been used to cool the molten reactors. This contaminated water is then restored in giant tanks, but the Japanese government claims it's running out of space to contain it. For years, what to do with this water has been debated. So, in 2019, the Japanese Environment Minister Yoshiaki Harada said the only option will be to drain it into the sea and dilute it. This measure was confirmed this Tuesday, 13th of April. Well, currently, radioactive water is treated through a complex filtration process that removes most of the radioactive elements, but there are some ash tritium that are still present. It is then stored in large tanks, but the operator of the plant, Tokyo Electric Power Co., is running out of space, and these tanks are expected to fill in 2022. This is what the Japanese government said. Around 1.3 million tons of radioactive water, enough to fill some 500 Olympic swimming pools, are currently stored in these tanks, according to a report by Reuters. It is also noticed that before pouring the water, make sure that there are no other radioactive elements in it, and it's only a matter of what will be released. Officials say that the water will be treated and diluted so radiation levels are below for drinking water. Well, now the question is how safe is the water? Japanese government argued that the release of wastewater is safe and is proceed to remove almost all radioactive elements and will largely remain diluted. The plan is accepted by the International Atomic Energy Agency, which said that the release is similar to the disposal of wastewater at other plants around the world. With dilution, the treated water doesn't present any scientifically detectable risk. That's what they said. However, it is said that the most important source of risk comes from other radioactive elements in the water. The expert consulted by BBC World agreed that the releasing 1 million tons of this water represents a low risk. A million tons sounds like a great volume, and yes, it is, but even so, it's only 1.1 billion of the volume of water in the Pacific. That is something that Charlie said, an expert in nuclear physics at the Pacific, and that's what he said to the BBC World. Also, the tritium is just a portion of the water that is thrown. Well, now are there other possible solutions? Other possible solution is to get rid of the water will be to evaporate it or bury it, but some experts said that the risk is bigger. The cost of evaporating the water will be enormous, and the energy demand for such process will lead to a detrimental effect on the environment. That's what the Professor Clara Wen said, an expert in chemical radiation at the University of Western Ontario, Canada. And that's what she said to the BBC World. Also, she adds that it's difficult to predict the path of dispersion of gases and that inhaling tritium is more harmful than ingesting it. As for underground storage, Ren said that is not safe. Well, now the opposition. The opposition is some environmental groups like Greenpeace. They have said for a long time their opposition releasing this water into the ocean. They say that Japan's plans show that the government once again failed the people of Fukushima. The decision has also drawn criticism from Japan's neighbors. Before the plan was approved, the South Korea foreign minister said he regretted the decision. Also, the Chinese foreign minister spokesman Zhao Lihan also argued Japan to act responsibly. And the fishing industry also has its doubts about this measure. The union leaders fear that the consumers will refuse to buy the region's product. In 2019, representatives of the fishing vessels said it was wrong to say that the dumping the water was the only option. Well, now I'm going to talk about the relation with some SDGs, some relation that I found. I found relation with two SDGs. I will start with the number 14, that is conserve and sustainably use the oceans, seas, and the marine sources for sustainable development. Clearly, this type of water with these chemical residues is going to damage on the ocean and the environment. Even the Chinese governments affirm that on a large scale it doesn't cause damage. This type of substance are not common for the ocean and shouldn't be. Then clearly it have to had some repercussions for this action that is clearly a human action and has nothing to do with the cycle of normal nature. I also associated with the SDG number 3, that is ensure healthy lives and promote well-being for all at all ages. Since any radioactive that is released into environment will have consequences. Of course, it doesn't mean that it guarantee that it will have cancer effects on the health, but it increase the radiation load, and this is not something that is acceptable or normal for the human nature. So finally, understanding all the problematic and understanding all the effects that it could have, and having both position, the position that it agree with this measure that the Japanese government is taking, and the other position that it's completely disagree with all the measures that this will have to the environment. What would you do with the sewage if you were Japan? What would you find another way to keep it in the country, or do you agree with what they are going to do? Finally, this is the bibliography where you can find all this information in BBC. Of course, there are many channels that are speaking about this news. I found that BBC is like it has a lot of scientists talking about. It have a lot of people from the opposition talking about. So you can find different articles of them in their page.